All right, everybody. Welcome to Hackers to Founders. My name is Chris Magistrado, aka REal0day, and this is going to be episode 0, which is going to be the most difficult episode I think I'm going to shoot, simply because I have to interview myself and provide you a little bit more about who I am without having, somebody ask me questions. That makes it a bit more difficult since I just have to go on what I believe my audience would be interested in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of make this episode similar to how I do the rest of the podcast episodes that I do. So I'm going to start with what got me into cybersecurity and kind of my life going towards it, my interest is in businesses, and then shifting towards how I started creating businesses, and then lastly, where I plan to go with them. Let's go into my background. So I'll say the question and then I'll get into it. Where did you grow up and how did that shape your interests in technology and cybersecurity? To be able to start exactly where I got into computers, I mean, obviously, like any kid with parents that want your child to know or be into some levels of computer. So I had this like really big honky computer as a kid, and they had some like big floppy disk games that I would play. But this is before I got into cybersecurity or anything that I knew about security in general. It's just this big honky computer that I had, and I use it sometimes. I also had like an N64, so I had to play games, and a Game Boy Color. And my Game Boy Color was purple, and it was clear too. I had a clear one and a purple one, but I remember the purple one being my first one. I want to say, like, in terms of like being around hacking or different types of things that broke rules in games is probably where I first started. So of course, there's Missing No. If you're a 90s kid and you played Pokemon Red or Blue, you know about Missing No. Basically, there's this glitch where you can attack this Pokemon, and then I think it's like your 6th, 7th, or 8th item in your inventory becomes like a lot, like 99 or something. So you can do this for rare candies and then level up your Pokemon to like level 100. You can also do this with nuggets and make a lot of money selling that. So yeah, that's kind of like where I started kind of playing around. By the way, I did a write-up on this. It's actually a buffer overflow vulnerability, and I'll link that. Other games as well. So, I also played StarCraft as a kid, and I would enter in cheats, and it would be like, power overwhelming. Black Sheep Wall, different like things that the game had created to make experience fun for some people that just wanted to not necessarily hack but kind of cheat. And I would do these, and I remember my cousin, he would say like, oh, like you can't do this, like, it just ruins the game, and like it's not this. So like I was like always like, oh, okay, then I just won't show you when I do them and stuff like that. So, and then as far as like online gaming and stuff, right? So even on StarCraft, like I would download like map packs so I could see like where the other person was and what they were doing at the time. And then there was also like Diablo, so you can also download map packs for that and also see where those people are. So I did that. Then other part was Jedi Knight 2. So there's this game, a Star Wars game that you can play, and you can play online, and you could basically have like, lightsaber battles online, and it was a lot of fun. There's also these things called cogs, is what the community called them. But basically, when the game launches, you can then move files over into the multiplayer directory, and then you were able to use different assets that you weren't normally allowed to use, or you didn't even have access to. So, for instance, you could have this gun, and you could shoot it, and then when you shoot it, it would like produce a door. So one thing I would do is like I would just put people into boxes using this, and then they would be stuck there, and then they would just quit and get mad. That was a lot of fun. Also, you can like fly around God mode and other types of things. Obviously, oh my God, you're a hacker, blah, blah, blah. But it was more like I was just using somebody else's tools that I found. And that was around, must have been like maybe 8 or 9, maybe 10, something like this. But I remember distinctly that like whatever I downloaded like broke my dad's computer. He was so mad about it. Because obviously, back in the 90s, just download everything. It's all fine, but, I'm sure all of it is like malware now. But that was kind of like my first instance of like hacking stuff, but not me creating and doing those, learning how they work, just like downloading and enjoying that. So shout out to everyone who created and discovered those things before me. It definitely inspired me to, be interested and take a little bit deeper look into it. So I think so when I was 10 or 11, maybe it was a little, no, I was 13. I was 13 years old. My mom's friend was married to somebody named Grant. Shout out Grant. And I remember like my mother said like, okay, like I'll buy him the computer components, but can you like, spend time with him building it together? And I think Grant, he was like 23, 24, 25 at the time, something like this. Is to be that age and then sit down with like a 13-year-old kid and like building a computer. It takes a lot of patience. Inside I could probably do it, but it takes a lot of patience. And we sat down and he showed me the components and we built it together. And at the end of it, we played like Diablo, this multiplayer game where we were like, attacking and getting potions and doing stuff like this. And it was really fun. Everything I saw at his house, I was like, oh, this is cool. What does this do? What does this do? And I was like super interested in learning different types of things. But I got to learn how to build a computer at a pretty young age. And I think one of the inspiring things about it was I broke it. It was a software issue or something. Like I had broken it. And my mom was like, oh, he broke it. Like, yeah, what was the point of this if like he's just going to break it? And then I remember Grant saying like, yeah, he's a kid. He's going to break it, but then he's going to learn how to fix it, kind of thing. And that mentality I think is like super healthy. And I'm glad that I had exposure to that when I was younger, because a lot of cybersecurity, a lot of anything in life is failing. And being comfortable with understanding that failure is part of the process. And if you're afraid to fail, then you will be afraid to make moves doing anything. And I think that's a lesson to be learned, not just in regards to security, but in life. So it's important to do that. And I want to say people in cybersecurity, we fail a lot of the time. So, it's like, oh, you fail 99 times, the 100th time you'll get it. I feel now that it's 99 times you'll fail, the 100th time you get closer to solving it, and then you go through another 100 rounds of failure, but on that 200th time, you're getting even more closer, and eventually you will get it. And that feeling, you'll feel like a god mode afterwards on the next challenge. You're going to feel back down to like, damn, I don't know what I'm doing. But that's just part of the process, so... But yeah, so that was my experience, at least in the very beginning. When I went into college, I wanted to learn business because I know that you can make a lot of money in business. So that's kind of what I wanted to learn more about. So I spent a lot of time. My major was business for the majority of the time. And I went to community college for the first, usually you go for the first 2 years. It took me like 2.5 years to get to get enough coursework so I could then transfer over to state. And I went to SF State. And that's important that I mention SF State because I will explain later that I helped inspire a bunch of people into cybersecurity. But at the time, I was full-time at SF State and full-time at City College of San Francisco. I took a class at City College of San Francisco, I took a class with Sam Boone, and he was the cybersecurity department at City College of San Francisco. He had a ethical hacking and network defense course. The entire syllabus was basically to go over the CompTIA Security Plus, and at the end of it, you could take the exam and then get your Security Plus certificate. So I was thinking like I can get certificates while in college. So I did that, and all of the other courses that I took with him, I was learning a significant amount of security stuff, and I was like, I like this a lot. Additionally, I was also taking Cisco's networking course, the CCNA, and I was learning networking at the time. So I was taking cybersecurity courses, I was taking networking courses, and for my business course, they had the option to take a computer science course, so I took that. And the professor said, computer science is the science of what can be computed. And with that phrase, I was hooked. I was like, I want to know what we can compute. I want to know how far we can push the boundaries of computer science. And in doing so, also, I moved in towards like pushing the boundaries of cybersecurity. So that's where I shifted and changed my major from business into computer science. And I had spent like so much time taking business courses. I had macroeconomics, microeconomics, business law. I really liked the computer science course, and I really liked what the professor had said. So I really wanted to do this, but at the same time, I couldn't afford college. I ran out of money. So what I did was I started applying for jobs in industry. So because I had taken courses at City College, I had some coursework done. So I created a cover letter. I wrote down the courses I was taking, the things I was interested in, and I submitted this to a few companies in San Francisco, a few startups. And there was a junior threat analyst position. They asked if for me to come in for an interview. I did terrible on the interview, but they had a position, a security analyst, that they believed that I could be good for. So that's when I got my first job. And at the time, I was making about $65,000 or so. And for the time, just getting not even finishing college, $65,000 is great. So I was like, this is terrific. So I stayed with that, and I networked. I met more people and stuff like this. And at that time, I was going to Defcon. My first time at Defcon was even crazy. Not as crazy as like one would normally think Defcon experience would be. I went to Defcon without knowing a single person. I went on the Defcon forums and I searched for like a ride. I'm like, hey, I'm trying to get to Defcon, and anyone from the Bay Area going. And this one guy, it was his first time too. And I'm like, cool, let's go together. So we drove from San Francisco all the way to Las Vegas. It was my first experience seeing and talking to people, and this kind of changed the way that I saw interactions when you're talking about people that are like hanging out like drunk or not sober. Because everything prior to that, I would hang out with people, they would be drunk, and it would just be like, oh, let's talk about how fucked up I am. And that's just kind of a boring conversation and it goes nowhere. But then when you're around intellectual people that are drinking, they don't stop at just like, oh, like I'm fucked up. They go deep into different types of thoughts and things and ideas that they've had about whatever they're interested in. So obviously in cybersecurity, they're talking about hacking stuff. So it was the first time I ever saw like people drinking and then thinking like, oh, they're talking about like, oh, I wonder if you could do this. And another person's like, I bet you could. And they're drunk. And then they get on their laptops, pop open a terminal, and then they start hacking away at this thing. And then they build like something in an inebriated state. And I just thought it was like the craziest thing to be able to like, take something and then, even while drunk and still be able to like, do something. So that's when I started really enjoying my company around people when I'm drinking, to be able to have stimulating conversations even when you're inebriated or whatever the case may be. There's just a significant difference being around people that are drunk and just being drunk and there's no additional conversations versus people that, can still stimulate your mind. After going to DEF CON and having that experience, I knew more about the community and that it was such a big area. So after my job, I went back to college. There was like 3 months before I needed to go and start classes. There was like a gap time. So I said, I'm just going to study on my own. So what I did was I actually downloaded all of the syllabi from notable colleges, like Ivy League colleges, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, Stanford, Berkeley. And I went through their curriculum and their syllabus, and I tried to figure out what books they were learning and what they were teaching. And there's even some courses that had the homework. So I started doing all of those in prep for my education at San Francisco State University. So I was teaching myself Python and C at the time. And then once I started at SF State for that time, they were learning Java, and I was really confused about like how memory was like handled and stuff. And it's like, oh, garbage collector, it's all good, don't worry about it. And I was like, but I want to worry about it. I want to know what the hell it's going. It was at this time I started looking at the San Francisco State University's syllabus and like how they taught computer science, and it was just different. And I noticed in class when I asked students, I'm like, hey, what are you, why did you pick computer science? People would say, oh, I like making games, or maybe I'll make a game, I play games, something like this, or maybe I'll make websites. Nobody had ever thought about cybersecurity or hacking and stuff like that, or at least they never saw it as an option. So I spoke to a few students and I was like, hey, like, I want to make this hacking club here at SF State. I want to get people into cybersecurity because like it is a massive industry. There's a lot you can do and learn from it. And I think like this department doesn't have something like this. So I want to create it. And I had the pleasure of having a few students help me out with this. Kirsten was my vice president, and she helped inspire me to like keep going. She's like, yeah, do it. We should do it. And like, just be able to push me to do it. If it wasn't for her, thank you so much. Like, I don't know if I would have done it. Thomas also helped significantly as well. And a lot of really great people at SF State. So shout out to all you guys. Really appreciate everything that you guys done. Shane, Coda, you know who you are. Julian, my boy. and they've taken it to greater lengths than I could ever have taken it. So I really appreciate you guys. But in those early days, I had to bring in people from industry. I wanted to bring in people that were in and had done cybersecurity in their real life and to speak with passion, because there's a significant difference between people that are professors and get paid to educate and teach, and then there's a difference between people that are working in industry and then they come and express their joy and their love for the thing that they're doing.
And what we do is something called full scope, YOLO swag, no holds bars, 360 headshot pen testing. That is the official term. But basically what that means is that there is no really things that are out of the possibility of what we can do. So anything that's possible is okay to do.
So I got 3 speakers to come in and just talk about, how you got into security, and talk about what you do.
So my name is Drew Porter. I break into shit for a living, and I started my own company doing it.
So that way it shows different types of career paths for this journey. And then following that was like the first day. Then I gave a presentation about cybersecurity as an industry, and then we started doing workshops and stuff. And I started bringing in servers, setting them up, and having people hack them and say, you can take this apart, you can do whatever you want with it. Here are some guidelines on how to do this. I even brought a computer into the computer lab and just said, this one's specifically to be hacked. And of course, I brought in servers as well. There was one cybersecurity course, and I started helping people with their homework, even though I had not taken the class. And that was a large part of my experience at SF State, was to try to educate and show people that cybersecurity is an option. And it made me really happy to be able to give that. And I want to say that's one of my most proudest moments in my life, is to be able to share my passion with people in that type of way, and show that, there's many opportunities out there, and here's the way that people are doing it. So at least with this podcast, I hope to do something similar where we can shift and I can bring more people that are hackers, and maybe they feel that they are typecasted in specifically being a hacker, and doing things outside of cybersecurity makes you less of a hacker. I really want to break that narrative and show that, hackers can do so much more than just cybersecurity or just whatever niche of area in security that they are. If you want to create a business, there are plenty of hackers that have done that, and I'm happy to show you every single one of them. That's the idea for this podcast. And if you want to, have a project or a different idea that's has nothing to do with cybersecurity, you just want to go out there to spend some time and to develop it, because this is the human experience, right? You're only here once in your life, so you should spend as much time doing the things that make you most happy and that you get a lot of joy from, even if it's not security. If it is security, go deep into it. But if there's other passions and things, figure out, how much time you want to allocate towards those, and start spending some time doing those things, and you'll be really happy to experience those types of things. What are some key projects or rules you've worked on that stand out? And during this period, I wanted to make sure that my system was like super secure, very anonymous and stuff. So I was actually running Cubes OS, which I still think is a ridiculously great and secure operating system. Some people say like, oh, virtualization is not, a form of security mechanisms, but if you configure it right, I believe like it's significantly harder to traverse different types of systems if they're all virtualized, and you need different types of vulnerabilities and exploits to be able to pop out of boxes and stuff like that. If someone's popping out of your boxes and moving around in that way, then you got a lot more problems than anything else. But yeah, I remember at the time I had like 32 virtual machines that were all set up, configured through different VPNs, Tor, and then different identities, and then different keys that were in vaults and stuff. And it was a beautiful system that I had created. And yeah, that was a fun project for me, but it was also just how I operated it and ran everything. So like, even my personal life, like I had a different virtual machine for that one. Things I just wanted to look up that I didn't really care about saving my identity for those searches. I had another one for that. And then, yeah. So have you had any breakthrough moments, such as discovering a major vulnerability or developing a significant tool? No. I'll be honest. Like, I'm not that interesting when it comes to other people in cybersecurity, which I think puts me in a good position to talk to people that are more interesting than I am. I've never found a major vulnerability and published a CVE on it. I have found some vulnerabilities, but most of those I've kept, and any significant toolage, nothing that is notable to have been shared. I've created a lot of different types of write-ups, such as like the how to use Yara, and different ones for reverse engineering, and different basic ones that I have, and they're on my website. But in terms of anything like major, like groundbreaking that has changed the industry, nothing as significant as the guest that will be on my show. So I also have other passions in life, and it's not my life goal to be able to produce these. I have different life goals of bigger ambitions that just are not specific to cybersecurity. Or I should say that are not just specific to vulnerability research. Who or what inspired you most in your cybersecurity journey? So definitely the Defcon talks. Like, I spent a lot of time in college just YouTubing Defcon talks and watching and looking at these presenters and be like, wow, like the way that they discover things. Like, you know, when you have no idea about a system or even how to approach it, you know, hearing somebody is like, yeah, so I found this out and found that out, and yeah, that's how I discovered it. There's those types of talks, but then there's the talks where it's like, yeah, I had no idea what this thing was. I saw this, and I know a little bit about that, but I had to learn. I had to spend time figuring this thing out, and I failed a lot, and I thought this was something at first, and it was not, and I spent a week on it. And then the next week, I spent this on it. And you hear the struggle that, you know, other hackers have, and I think that's a massive component, and I think us in the cybersecurity community should share more about their struggles, about how to get there. There's some really great write-ups and CTFs where people talk about the struggles. There's lots of YouTube videos and a lot of hackers talking about the struggles for doing something. And those struggles are so significant, bringing the human part of this entire process there, because a lot of people, they have the notions of like, oh, hackers, you're just a genius, or you just knew how to do it, because that's Hollywood. Hollywood wants to sell this idea that, like, you know, there is no struggles when you are a genius. There are no struggles when this, and even in business, people are like, oh, like, you know, Steve Jobs knew how to do everything, or like whoever that you look up to in business, if you look up to anybody in business, or if you look up to anyone in anything. A lot of the times they'll talk about like how easy these things were, like, oh, I just thought about it and it happened. Or that's the portray of some of these like types of outlets and medias and stuff like that, and it's not the case. And the people that say that that's how it was, most times they're fucking lying. Like, there is struggle and there is challenging things, and I think learning about those challenges makes you who you are and going through them. So who inspired me? So I have a lot of people that have inspired me. Also, of course, Jason Street, watching some of his videos when I was younger, are brilliant. Zaz's presentation for Defcon 18, when he talks about how his computer was physically stolen from his apartment, and I think it's San Francisco.
Unfortunately, we're not dealing with zombies in this case. They climbed through a second floor window via an access method that I hadn't noticed, and then busted the red lock. So just had to bypass one door.
And he tracked it down to Las Vegas because he had remote access to it, and how he got the police to actually go and retrieve it. And it's brilliant. You know, that type of like journey. I remember watching this when I was younger. I'm like, this entire story is super interesting. And yeah, like it's these types of people that really inspired me to want to give presentations and talk and be around and show other people of what I've created. So I have a lot of people that have inspired me. So these are just a few of them. Also, shout out Chase, aka Father, also a big inspiration, you know, and just hanging out and chatting with him. He's always really great energy and stuff like that, and always like, you know, pushes me to do my best. So there's a lot of really great people. What drives you to keep evolving in this field? Is it curiosity, the challenge, or something else? So for me, I'll talk about the things I'm most interested right now is mobile research and vulnerabilities around mobile applications. And I think the thing that drives me about it, at least right now, is looking at it from a business perspective. After starting my recruiting agency, it appears that the mobile research area is just a significant area of value for a lot of entities. And learning how to do these things and these skills, at least in the vulnerability research area, is highly valuable. So it's very interesting for me to continue and learn these types of things. So I also implore you to look at some of these things. Shout out to Mobile Hacking Lab. Umit has created an entire program to help you learn about not just reverse engineering mobile applications, but also learning userland and kernel fuzzing, as well as different types of ways that malware can propagate through systems. I highly recommend you take a look at Mobile Hacking Lab. I will link more of this into this episode and share with you guys the different types of things. And I think eventually I'm going to start creating some videos as well of me doing a few of the challenges. So definitely take a look at that. Now, other types of things that I've been doing in terms of the business side of stuff. So about 2021, one of my friends approached me and said, hey, I know you're looking for work right now. I know that you are a vulnerability researcher, but I have some work that's kind of adjacent. I have a recruiting opportunity. You can help me find some people, and I'll pay you for that. So I said, okay, sure. And I thought it was going to be pretty easy. I'm like, oh, I know a bunch of hackers. I'll just see who wants jobs. But the jobs were very niche and very specific to mobile research, and not that many friends I had were in that area. I had maybe one, and they weren't interested. And I was like, okay, so I need to go find people. So then I had to learn and develop how to be able to contact people online, speak with them, and learn more about, like, you know, if they're interested, right? A good recruiter will not just try to sell you on some bullshit. A good recruiter will try to figure out what it is that you're looking for that'll make you more happy. And if they have that opportunity, present it. So a lot of people give recruiters a bad rep, but honestly, the only reason that recruiters exist is to, you know, try to help you get into a new company and for the company to find the people that they want, right? If you don't want to have, you know, a role with them, fine. And, you know, if they're not technical, that's also fine, because a lot of them aren't. I'm blessed to say that I'm probably more technical than most recruiters, which is why all of my candidates and clients like to come to me and talk to me, because they're like, okay, you know exactly what the skill set is, what we need, go find them. So, and that's very helpful for when I bring a resume over to a client and I say, this person, and even though they don't fit exactly what you're looking for in terms of your requirements, their skill set and what they bring to the table and what they've done for the community is more than you could ever ask for. And this is the person to hire. So that's how I help bring on top tier talent to clients, even if the requirements that those clients have is a little bit outside of the reality and expectations of what the top class people can provide. So I like to think of myself as like someone who helps people get jobs and shares new journeys and ventures for them. And that's something that I want to just continue with my life. I like helping people, and I like seeing them grow, no matter if it's a person with a business or somebody that wants to level up their skills and go farther with their cybersecurity career. So those are two things I'm massively passionate about. So it's pretty easy for me to, like, you know, execute on this. Some people have difficulties with rejections and, you know, people's, you know, hackers saying like, fuck off and all this shit. And, you know, that's fine. Like if somebody doesn't want to talk to you, then they don't want to talk to you, you know, and maybe later in their life they will. But if they don't now, that's fine to go talk to somebody else. And at least for my company, Top Cleared Recruiting, we hire and we recruit the best top tier cybersecurity talent in the world, not just the United States. We have people that are looking for mobile researchers, other vulnerability researchers, CNO developers, CNO operators, and even data scientists outside of cybersecurity as well. So we touch on different IT roles, but mainly we like to focus on cybersecurity because that's what we know. And we like to provide these roles. If you guys have any roles that you guys need filled and you want them filled fast, we're the type of people to do so. My team can fill roles very quickly and start bringing high quality candidates because our network of 1.3 million people is able to be extended over to you. And we already have relationships and connections with the people, and they trust us. So if you're looking for candidates, let us know. How did you transition from being a cybersecurity researcher into running your own business? This is a great question, and I don't want people to think that like it was just, oh, I want to start a business, let me start a business and do it. I had done things previously that were always business related or entrepreneur startup stuff related, right? So I went through Y Combinator startup school course, and it is perfect if you want to build a product. If you have a product or some type of idea that you want to build, the school is terrific because Y Combinator, the VC firm, wants to invest in startups and companies that want to build a product so that way they can generate a significant amount of money. My recruiting agency is significantly different because it's an agency, it's a service-based business. So Quick thing about businesses, you'll either have a product-based business or a service-based business. They're handled differently in terms of the valuation of those types of businesses. So in the product-based business, the most valuable thing is the product as well as the amount of traction that a company has. So how many users do you guys have? Are they paying? Or are they not paying? And then how much would they pay once you start incorporating a fee? Or are you going to, be like Facebook and sell their data, and what's that worth, right? While a service-based business, the majority is based on the contracts and the recurring revenue that's happening with those contracts and the people. It's more about the people, because when you can build up businesses to sell them, and when you do that for a product-based business, those customers and the traction, all that's going to go with it, and they want to bring on the engineers as well. But in a product-based business, it's easier actually to cut the engineers after the company gets acquired or taken over, because you can find other types of people that can do the engineering part of it. You can also find different types of management as well for a higher level product, and to be able to share with the market or to be able to present it to the market, right? In a service-based business, it's much more difficult to cut the people, because those people might have relationships. So my recruiting agency, we have relationships with people. So cutting people is just not going to work, because that could really detriment the business, which means that when the business goes over, the people have to join and stay on for a certain amount of time. What this really means is that the valuations of these things are different. So for products-based businesses, you can have 2, 5, 10x of a product for acquisition when you sell it. Service-based businesses, specifically recruiting agencies, you can sell it for 1.6 to 2x based on revenue, while product bases could be significantly more. And the length of time to sell those businesses are also different depending on the product, where you're at in the business. There's different evaluations for different points. I'm not going to get into that, but these are some of the things that I just have learned. So if you decided to create a tool that you've been utilizing for your work, and you're like, this could be a product, product-based business, shoot on to Y Combinator, Startup School, or learn a little bit more about that. If it's more service-based, you're going to have to learn a little bit more about, service-based cybersecurity businesses. Easiest ones are going to be consulting businesses. You spent a few years working at a big company as a pen tester. Now you're thinking about setting up your own firm, right? The best thing to be able to move towards that is learn about the landscape, see what customers that you'll be able to help, and figure out how you're going to differentiate yourself in the market from other types of people, and how you're going to make those relationships and then sell your services. I want to say it's a challenge if you're very technical and you like not hounding and talking to clients, and you just like to do the work, to then start a business, because you will have to talk to clients. You will have to, not just clients, you're going to have to find clients, convince them and sell them that you are good, and for them to go with you versus somebody that's bigger, right? So that can be a big hurdle. And then you are going to have to learn sales, or you're going to have to find a co-founder that does all the sales. So that's another opportunity for you to network while you're in specific types of companies. If you're thinking about leaving, maybe grab somebody from sales or pre-sales and it's like, hey, I think we can set this up and do this on our own. Are you interested? The salesperson will get more money. You will also get more money, so long as you guys have the marketplace for it. So these are different types of ideas. A lot of people in the product-based side, maybe you're doing research and you want to start producing products and start selling those. You're going to have connections, and you're going to have to know people. If you are doing research-based, if you want to start a research-based business where you're finding O-days and stuff like that, contact me. I have enough resources and people that will be able to help and guide you to being successful at building your own research practice. For me, transitioning from a security researcher into my own business, I had to learn sales. I had to read books and understand a little bit more about what makes my products and services more valuable and how other people are doing it. When you are starting a business, it's best to rub shoulders with people that are doing it successfully and have conversations with them. How do you do that? You go to meetups, you go on LinkedIn, you reach out, you say, hey, starting a business, want to know a few questions. I'd like to know a few questions about what you would do differently when you first started. If you ask 100 people, maybe 10 of them respond, and then 10 of those people are going to give you some of the best advice ever. This is about breaking out of your comfortability and meeting people. And those connections, they're going to want to see you grow. And if you keep producing and sharing and doing things, they're excited about that. So, these are the types of things that you have to keep doing as a business entrepreneur. And you have to understand that failing is going to happen a lot and being comfortable with it. If you have a hard spine because you've done cybersecurity and you pen tested, or you spent enough time doing research and bashing your head because you forgot a semicolon or something, or you missed one line to see that was a vulnerability, then talking to people and breaking through those challenging points will be a challenge, but you have thick skin, you'll be able to do it. Whenever you're trying to learn or do something different, you have to become a new identity. And understand that, that this doesn't mean that your other identity is not there, but you have to work in building that new identity. You can think of it like a game. Your level might be like level 78 in terms of something in cybersecurity, like vulnerability research. But then in terms of sales, you might be level 1, and you get level 2, level 3, and you have to learn how to do those things. And the best way to do that, jump into books. I have a lot of books. Jump into other types of things and just grow and learn this way. How do you balance your business with your podcast and other ventures? This is a great question. If you are in security, you know what it means to have a project and how many projects get done versus how many projects you thought about. When you start going down the path of entrepreneurship, it's the same exact thing. You're like, I like this business idea. I like this business idea. And the trick is to try to figure out exactly which ones you will be passionate about long term. We're talking ideally years out. That can be difficult, especially if you're beginning. Maybe you're only going to know that you're interested in it like this month or next month. But the way to really, stay focused into the things that you need to get done, especially if you're having multiple ventures, is try to find a center piece and center source of this. So even this podcast, right? I want to interview, I want to meet more people and stuff like that. But this also helps my top clear recruiting business as well, because I'll be able to meet and network with more people, and this is really helpful for me in my business. So the podcast helps me on the top clear recruiting side of things, and then my top clear recruiting side of things and funding that helps me fund the podcast. So they're one and the same in terms of like how much venturing they go out of, but at the same time you have to focus, and like if you need to do more things and you don't have enough time, it means you need more people. Really, really great book, Who Not How. Highly recommend taking a read at that if you're interested in building things, because you realize that it's not about how to get it done when you can find who and how to figure that out. I remember when I first started doing business, I'm like, well, I don't have enough money to pay people. People will work for free, but they will also work if you offer them something that they don't have. If you offer them, an opportunity that they don't have before, either to gain experience or even better, even equity or shares into your company, or start generating, hey, if you help me here and we gain money and traction here, I will give you this percentage. They're more likely to work with you. And people really care about success, and if they're, especially other businesses. So collaborating with other businesses in this way is one of the most positive things that you can do if you do not have money or you're bootstrapping your business. So you can, if this is of interest, reach out to me and I'll be able to provide more insights and maybe even make more videos on that. What are you currently working on that excites you most? Well, obviously this podcast and networking and meeting more people that are doing amazing things in cybersecurity, right? So you always hear these stories, or you play with tools, right? Like Ghidra, made by the NSA, Binary Ninja, made by Vector 35 and Jordan Wines and his team. You just play with the tools, and it's like you don't think about like who made this, like how was this made, like what made them want to create something. And I think there's a lot to be spoken about there. There's a lot to hear about, like, how did you get to this journey? How did you get to this area? And I want more people to be interested in starting businesses and creating our industry, our cybersecurity, and make it bigger and better and get more jobs. Because a lot of people need more jobs. So we're able to create jobs with these types of things. So I'm really, really hoping that more people will start jumping out and starting businesses and create more jobs for us in our industry. So that's what excites me. What excites me is being to help people. Businesses should generally help people. And businesses, if you're doing it right, you are helping people, and there's a value to it. Obviously, there's businesses that exist and they don't help people and they're malicious in nature. And you know what types of businesses those are. But, you are the one that decides what types of businesses that you do and what types you make. And there's that famous quote, there's a million ways to make $1 million. So figure out exactly what it is that makes you interested, what you're passionate about, and do it. Future plans. What do you see for the future of cybersecurity, and how do you plan to contribute to that future? I'm just doing everything a day at a time, right? The future of cybersecurity is, at least within the next 5 to 10 years, is going to be around AI. It's going to be around fraud. It's going to be around breaking encryption methods that we currently have significantly faster, and then generating and building out new types of encryption. A lot of things are going to be based on stealing of identities, I believe. And I think we're going to have a lot of disrupting different types of financial structures as well. Blockchain technology, and specifically Bitcoin, other useful products like Ethereum, I think are going to start shifting and changing the way that we are handling commerce now. And I think we're always going to need a way to protect those things. Additionally, when it comes to different types of conflict, I think cybersecurity is always going to be the most sought after tool in terms of attack and defense, right? I still think that no matter what, cybersecurity is going to always be there. So at least for the industry, I don't think it's ever going to go away. And I only think it's going to grow and be more important as time goes on. And I think AI is going to play a pivotal role in that, not just in politics and protecting our identity and democracy, but also in the way that you can utilize that to control mass amounts of people, as well as the way that we handle security, right? So, for example, like on Reddit, there's a few bots that allow you to repost images. There's a few bots on Reddit, and they want to find duplicates of images and then remove them automatically, right? Specifically one bot, it was open source code. So I grabbed that, plugged it in ChatGPT, and I said, hey, build a bypass for this and write it in Python. And it did. So then no matter what image you upload, you can just put it through my engine, and then it would craft a new an image that looks almost identical, but a little bit different. And then it would bypass their types of things. So, with AI being able to write bypasses and find vulnerabilities, we're going to be able to, decrease the amount of time that it takes to at least initially discover or find things, but also increase the amount of times for these types of attacks to happen. And ideally, in that area, we're going to start leveraging, seeing a lot more AIs being utilized for different types of security products and such. Right now, it's a massive buzzword, obviously, but I don't see it dying down as much as other types of buzzwords. Like they said the internet was a buzzword. Do you still use the word internet daily? I do. But maybe I'm just more of a nerd than the average person. What are your personal and professional goals over the next 5 to 10 years? So for this podcast, I'll speak about the podcast. I would love it we're eventually having a studio where I have guests come in, we sit down, have conversations, and we talk about some deep level stuff. Dive into technical details, dive into businesses and people that are interested in starting new things, other types of research labs that are being explored, and really share and ingrain more passion into our industry over the next 5 to 10 years. Personal goals, like I really like real estate, and I really want to own multiple properties in different countries and stuff. I just always want to have a home almost anywhere, so that's one of the things. At least with my wife and my family, I'm excited to grow. I hope in 5 to 10 years we'll have some kids, and professional goals, right? I do a lot of this because I think about my family and their future. So I don't want to leave my children without having a stable financial outcome for the rest of their lives, and for future generations as much as I can help it. So all the work that I do and my motivations for doing so, I'm thinking about my unborn children and the people that will benefit from this in the long run. So in 5 to 10 years, I hope to have stable businesses that are able to support our lifestyle and to be able to give back to the community and help grow and nurture and invest in different types of cybersecurity businesses. So this video will be proof of what I'm saying before it happens, and when it does happen, you'll see. Is there any new challenges or industries you want to explore next? As of right now, I want to stick primarily to cybersecurity, and Data science as well. I think that's going to be a massive growth industry that I want to be a part of as well. But as far as challenges that I want to explore, right, it's just growing the recruiting agency. It's growing this podcast, and it's, becoming more of a person that's in front of the community more. I am terrified of speaking and recording myself. Right now, I'm ridiculously uncomfortable right now doing this, but I know that's going to be good. And I know now that I can do a lot of editing to make myself not appear as awkward as I really am. I'm very awkward in recording this, and I know I am. And even when I was shooting my first few podcasts, I was so nervous and I was so bad at it. And I only know that it's going to get better. So the challenges are going to be for me to do more public speaking and to speak more out on different types of topics and things and meet more people. So that's always been difficult for me because I always like to be behind a terminal. I didn't like talking to people. I don't like talking to people in general. I like just what I like, and I like focusing on that. So this is an entire opportunity, is a challenge for me to be able to grow in this type of way and level up that part of me that I feel is like a level 1, level 2 kind of person. If you could give one piece of advice to someone starting out in cybersecurity, what would it be? Now, this question was the question that I received the most amount on Reddit. And I put a little information about myself, asking people to ask questions. So I have a lot of general questions asking how do I get into cybersecurity, of which I'll do my best to answer. And then I have a lot of just people not believing I'm a hacker, which is funny and fine, I guess. Like, whatever. Like, I like it because it's kind of like, I'm saying you can ask me questions if you want, but it's like, prove it. It's like, no, like either ask your question or don't, and take the advice, or don't. It's just so silly. Anyways, it really depends on what areas in cybersecurity you want to get into, right? So I think the best way to think of it is like cybersecurity. People think like, oh, I want to get into cyber, or I want to get into InfoSec. And they think like it's a single restaurant, right? It's like one place you go, like McDonald's, where you get a burger and fries, and like there's not really much variations in the menu generally, but it's not that way. Cybersecurity is a buffet. There are different cuisines, there are different types of things you can get into, and you can specialize in any single one of these. So whenever I'm speaking to somebody who's brand new in cybersecurity, I always say, why do you want to get into it? What are the things that most interest you? And to give you a premise of like the different types of things that there are, there's web hacking. Do you want to hack websites and secure websites and figure out how data flows through them? Do you want to, find vulnerabilities? Do you like taking things apart to the deepest technological like level and figuring out why those things are there, and then trying to find ways to, basically make it submit to whatever program that you want to do and create? Are you interested in learning how to navigate different types of systems quietly? Are you interested in like how malware works? Are you interested in learning how to defend against malware? Are you interested in learning how physical security works? Do you like locks? Do you like car doors? Do you like to learn about cars? Do you like to learn how cars are connected to systems like the Tesla system, Tesla's network and stuff? Do you like to learn about these types of things? Do you like games? Do you like figuring out how hackers like reverse engineer networking protocols and being able to manipulate the server via client-side stuff? Like, what is that fun? Great, jump into that. There's so many things that you can specialize in, so it's difficult to say like, what is the first thing you should do. My advice is to try everything. Look at all of the things and see which ones you gravitate or like a lot, and then get a little bit deeper and deeper and deeper into it. Now, different ways of actually doing this. I'm a big advocate for Hack the Box Academy. I think there's a lot of really great modules on there. The most recent one I did was window evasion, where we would bypass Windows Defender statically, dynamically, make open source tools that are already being used and how to avoid detection with those ones. And I really liked that class. I thought that was an amazing course. Try everything and then read books, watch Defcon talks, and if you're questioning like what books, well, whatever parts of interest that you're into, start there, and then set up your computer. If you need to set up, you generally, no matter what you're going to do, you're going to have to set up virtual machines or utilize a platform that does it, like Hack the Box, and then just be able to hack and start practicing on your own home environment. A lot of people think like, oh, you're a hacker, you do everything illegally. No, you can have a lab at home and start hacking on that. If you're learning martial arts, it's not like, oh, cool, I learned to punch. You don't run on the street and go punch somebody. No, you have a lab or a studio, a dojo where you go and practice at, and that's a safe environment. So that way, if there's, in the event something happens on the street or something, you're able to defend yourself. You don't need to like start running around on websites. People do, but again, you're able to just practice at home, and that's 100% fine and legal. What skills or mindset do you think are most important for success in this field? And again, like it's having thick skin and understanding like, yeah, this stuff's hard, and being able to find people and talk with people in the community is very helpful. And I think that, if you're not able to find people, then you're gonna just do it on your own, at least until you're able to network and meet more people. If you're looking to meet more people, BSides, there's a ton of them all over the world. And if you're in the United States, there's a bunch of Defcon groups. So depending on where you're at, talking like you just put the DC and then your zip code, you might be able to find a local group that you'll be able to go and meet with. So shout out to all the ones that do that. Thank you guys so much for hosting and creating those types of communities for new hackers to come out. Okay. I want to talk about meeting more people, right? So you have those different types of groups as well as going to the conferences. And I think I'm one of the more experienced people in terms of traveling and going different types of hacking events. A lot of people in the United States stay focused to the nation, going to Defcon, Black Hat, ReverseCon, shout out, other types of conferences that are there and they don't travel outside. For the ones that do, Offensive Con, right, Recon, there's different ones that you can go to that, are more geared and focused to what you're interested in. But I think it's best broken down into 3 types of events. Commercial events where companies will go and they'll start selling products and things like this, and they'll start showing off new tools and things like that. You have government type events where they try to sell to governments and try to make sales for security products and services there. If you're new, that's going to be really boring for you. You're not going to like it. I promise you. Going to RSA is not going to be fun for you if you're new. That's my 2 cents. But if you like more of the community side based things, DEF CON will be more fun. Black Hat is more, I would say, geared towards like commercial sales and even like government sales, but DEF CON is more of a community-based one. Now, one that I feel the United States has been lacking as of recently and more recently is more grassroots and community-based ones. So in cybersecurity, a lot of people get into it because they are just interested in learning about cybersecurity, and they hack because they want to learn how to hack. And I think sometimes down the road things change, the individual changes as well, but there are some meetups, particularly in Europe, CCC being the biggest one, where it's significantly grassroots, where you hack to hack and you hack to share. And these types of communities, it's significantly different because they don't build products to be able to sell or make money. They build it because they like it, and they share it with the community because they believe in the rights of privacy, data sovereignty, and different types of things that they believe all people should have, like the right to privacy. And these types of hackers produce these tools, and generally a lot of them are free, but some of them, if they have to pay for operating costs, then they'll charge. But these types of communities, I'm talking about the festivals, right? CCC Camp. I went to SHA 2017, still hacking anyways.
My name's Chris. I'm from San Francisco, California, United States. This is the second camp I've been to. I went to Chaos Communication Camp 2 years ago, and I loved it, so I came here because I love the culture, the community here. In America, there's a lot of conferences. You can get a job, interview, recruit. Here, it's more people and people interacting and talking and exchanging different ideas, and nothing about work and how you do anything else. It's just come, enjoy, and have a good time.
Imagine like a music festival like EDC or whatever, but instead of people going for the music, they go for the hacking experience. So I'll always shout out CCC Camp because that is the mecca of it. For those that are American, you probably know about Tour Camp. Tour Camp, from my understanding, was inspired by these European camps where you have thousands of people traveling from all different parts of the world to become and gather and have a great time. So, and you'll definitely hear me have podcast episodes there coming soon as well. At a time, I was also working at Georgia Tech at the Institute of Information Security and Privacy, where I managed over 150 servers for PhD students that were doing malware research or vulnerability research. And at that place, I would review their different types of white papers and the papers that they would be producing. And I really enjoyed it. Shout out to Evan Downing, really good malware researcher and reverse engineer. I spent a lot of time with him, and yeah, it was a great experience. I learned a lot about how the academic system of research works for grant proposals and everything, and it was a very interesting process that I really liked. After that, I was a security researcher for a startup called Assembly. I was employee number 4. I was with the CEO, the CTO, and another software engineer. What we were doing were we would mitigate the risk of exploitation through network segmentation for hospital networks. So we would put devices in hospitals, analyze all the network traffic, identify the devices, identify all potential vulnerabilities, and then create rules and ways to mitigate the risk of exploitation. It was my job to determine all known vulnerabilities on a network, and we would have over 100,000 devices on some of these networks. So I had to associate every single device with every single type of known CVE. I made a copy of the NVD database, and then I associated it with all the known devices that we have, and then we would produce a list of all those types of vulnerabilities and then how they could mitigate the risk of those from getting hacked. It was a very great challenge. I got to learn a lot about how a small startup works, and I'm grateful for the experience to be able to do so. It really taught me a lot about what it means to work very, very hard, late hours for the vision of doing something amazing. And I really appreciate that experience, and it made me a really good security researcher. What are your feelings on most companies moving to the cloud model like AWS, for example, who mostly have security included? Is this an impact on your contracts? I'll start with how it's an impact on the business in cybersecurity as a whole, and then also specifically to us. So, talking about companies going to the cloud, let's bring into what AWS had created and how it shifted the entire Silicon Valley, right? So, when you had a tech startup and you wanted to build out some type of thing, you had to buy a bunch of servers and spend a lot of money on the hardware first and have it all set up. And this was very expensive. In the days of Netflix, on their first day they launched, they crashed. They had to go physically buy 3 more servers. They did, and only a few hours later, it crashed again. They didn't have enough infrastructure. And this was a massive issue that a lot of tech startups had starting, and a lot of them died in those early days. So with the advancements of cloud, AWS and cloud computing and infrastructure, this significantly shifted the amount of time that it would take, because generally it would take about 6 to 8 months to get servers, get them all set up and running the way that you wanted them to. AWS decreased that down to 10 minutes. So now you have a startup, you have an idea, you can build it out and then put it online and test it and get initial traction, so that way people and VCs can start investing more. So this was actually one of the bigger Silicon Valley booms that had happened, was due to cloud computing. Now, in terms of the security industry, no, because of AWS, you have different types of partners that work with AWS and provide different types of products specifically for those cloud environments, right? And I think it's significantly better for the industry that we do have things in the cloud and that we do have these types of processing. Before, they were still in the cloud. You still had servers that were running somewhere. It's just a lot easier to set up them without physically having to do them yourself. So this entire process has made things so much more streamlined and better. There's also a really good documentary on Netflix. I'll link that as well. As far as it impacts our clients and stuff like that, no. If anything, pen testing in cloud infrastructure environments still exists. So does red teaming. So these are types of things that we still have contracts for. So it's totally fine. And companies are still hiring for these types of expertise. So it doesn't affect us at all, at least not in a negative way. Okay, question: do hackers still program in assembly like they did back in the 90s, and are using polymorphic viruses still a thing? I remember making batch file viruses back on my Windows 98 when I was a kid, lol. All right, well, if you were doing that in 98, if you jump into cybersecurity now, I think a lot of people will just have massive respect for you immediately, even some of the people that have been around for a while. So as far as polymorphic malware, yes, that still exists. It's still a thing. Are people programming in assembly? Absolutely not. I hope you're not. If you are, please contact me. I'll do whatever I can to make your life better. But no, the people that learn assembly, we usually learn it because we're doing reverse engineering and we're taking binaries apart or some type of thing, right? And we're the only reason we're taking a look at that is because we need to. But as Jordan said, you're kind of silly now if you're not using a decompiler. Being able to take a look at it and read it in some type of legible code base outside of assembly is kind of where things are going. And as he said, at what point you start reverse engineering by what of those languages or tools that you prefer to use, which is really interesting. Do you have any antivirus on your machine? What measures do you take with your personal computer security? Right, so, this might be mildly controversial depending on who you are in security, but my opinion is Windows Defender is still going to be one of the best antiviruses out there. I have a big trust issue for different types of antiviruses, particularly some that are utilized and built in other countries outside the United States. There have been instances where malware was known on computers, but the antiviruses specifically were quiet and did not say that it was on there. Nation state activity. What I mean is governments. Now, I personally believe and like Windows Defender, and I believe that it's one of the best ones. There's other antiviruses that you can have in replacement, but I don't think they're going to be as good as Windows Defender because I believe I believe Microsoft has more data points than almost any other company to be able to provide that type of security. The most important thing in terms of your personal security is keep your devices updated. Your operating system should be updated as much as possible, and your phone as well. I know you feel it slows it down. Maybe it probably does, but it's going to be more secure if it is updated. So it's much more difficult to hack things if your devices are updated. And generally, as hackers, we don't always specifically target the devices that are the most updated. We'll just target whichever ones are the lowest hanging fruit, right? So if your stuff is up to date, then you are off the radar for most hackers. If somebody really doesn't like you and it's in your threat model, then maybe they will try to, circumnavigate and try to figure out exactly how to get to you. But, if you are up to date, that means they might have to crack open an O-day and you might not even be worth it, honestly. How close is the movie Hackers? I still have my skates and I still ride them through the cyber world today. Nah, just kidding. We don't here's the thing. Hackers is a great movie. I believe every hacker loves it. I still have not met a hacker who's I hate that movie. And they just really have a vendetta or just don't like it. If you don't like it, valid point, right? There's so many silly things that are in it. But I think the hackers that most of us, we like the movie because of those funny things. Because they're so silly, right? You have the MP4s that are coming in and they're everywhere. Everyone gets raided and stuff like that. Angelina Jolie talking about risk architecture, right?
Risk architecture is going to change everything.
Yeah, risk is good.
Them even pulling out the different types of books that are utilized for security standards.
International Unix environments.
Luscious orange.
Computer security criteria, DoD standards. The pink shirt book, guide to IBM PCs, so-called due to the nasty pink shirt that I wear on the cover. Devil book, Unix Bible.
What's that?
Dragon book compiler design.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
The red book, NSA trusted networks, otherwise known as the ugly red book that won't fit on a shelf.
All of those things are real things. In terms of all the hacks that they do, most of them are real. I think at the very end, he hacks and turns on the lights at the building across. But you could do that if there's set up on IoT today, but it's technologically possible, but the amount of effort that it would take, it's you would get bored after 30 minutes. I would, Jesus. But yeah, in terms of hacking ATMs and pumping money out, yep, that's totally a thing. war dialing and calling and finding different types of systems that are online. True.
Back then, phones you would just dial them up with a modem, and there's a concept called war dialing, which is where you would just take a prefix and an area code and then try to dial systems, and you would see if you get a carrier tone on the other end that was a computer, but that was illegal in Colorado Springs.
I think hacking a submarine or a tanker and flooding it and using it for ransom, yeah, that's also potentially possible, but there's other ways to make more money, and that's way more simpler than doing those types of things. What advice would you give the average person to stay private and secure? So obviously I recommend using a VPN, not a VPN company that's in the United States. If you want to be private, then a US one is not going to cut it, at least if you're looking to be private from government entities. I recommend using VPN providers that are outside of the United States, that are more lax when it comes to those types of laws and rules if you care about privacy. At least around governments. VPNs are terrific if you're in a open network, or if you're out somewhere in public, you can use a VPN. Additionally, you can use a VPN at home if you don't want your ISP to monitor and record everything, because all the ISPs also do this. So every time you're on the internet, if you pop open an incognito browser, boom, you don't have a VPN. If you don't have a VPN up, then your ISP is collecting and seeing everything you search. I also got this one on Reddit. You should get on Darknet Diaries. And I said this on Reddit, and I'll say it here, I don't think I'm that interesting. All right, so I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about me, who I am, and where I am going in my life and my journey, and then how I like to bring you along and learn more about you guys and everything. So if you like this episode, drop a comment, message me, share this out with people. If you don't like it, great, let me know what you didn't like about it, and I will talk about it next episode. Thank you so much for your time.